Hey, everybody. It is Tim Kilroy, and I'm here with an incredible panel around how to drive more revenue with paid advertising. This is a huge, huge topic for agency growth. I mean, it's just an enormous opportunity that, frankly, gets downplayed because just like our clients, we often think of advertising as a cost center rather than a revenue source. So we've got three incredible panelists today who are going to walk us through how we should be thinking about paid media to develop our own business and how those same strategies can be used to increase your client's business. First up, we've got John Loomer from John Loomer Digital. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Man, oh man, my first exposure to Facebook is 2007 when I worked for the NBA, and we partnered with Facebook to create an app. Those are crazy times. And then I've been educating agencies and consultants on advertising on Facebook since 2011, way back Power Editor days and the glory of the Wild West of Facebook ads, where man, it was easy. And so that's been my focus for a long time, and I've been through the ups and downs and all the changes along the way. It's been fun.
All right, Chris Maddie from Version.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm the founder and chief revenue officer of Versium, and we bring kind of a unique perspective to this discussion. Our company is all about data. We deploy a suite of data technology tools that advertisers can use to optimize their digital media spend. And so when we think about increasing revenues, we kind of think about it from how does fixing data issues, how do you leverage data underlying all of these activities to maximize your revenue from digital? And, to give you kind of a sense of the importance here, Serious Decisions recently did a study that suggests that companies that leverage and optimize their data can see literally 70% increase in revenue by focusing on data quality and leveraging it in the most effective way. So in our modern world of being data driven, that's where we come from. And so we look forward to chatting today.
All right. And we've got Marina from Growth Channels.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So my background spans with first the corporate life, which I set up digital transformation programs for Philips and Allianz. I also had my marketing agency, full service, focusing on fintech, which I ran for over a decade and then exited. And for the past 3 years, I've been working on Growth Channel, and this is an AI-powered marketing engine for planning and programmatic advertising, which is also another kind of trending channel these days that can definitely make or break your bank, of course, for advertising, as long as you keep it in the right and run it in the right way. And of course, with data such as Chris's technologies can always make it more effective. So looking forward to this conversation today.
Me too. My name's Tim Kilroy, and I'm an agency coach and consultant, and I actually help agency leadership teams bust through all of the problems that they have. And most of the time, the number one concern, the big problem that they're worried about is how do we drive more revenue? So I'm going to jump right into the questions that we've talked about before and the things that are most important. And then I'm going to call your names so you can jump in and give an answer. Also, in the audience, if you've got questions, make sure you ask them in the chat. We'll make sure that they get addressed either afterwards or in the follow-up sessions later. Okay? All right. First of all, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but paid social advertising is cuckoo. Like it has changed so much over the years from heavily reliant on manual targeting to AI powered to audience powered, from static images to video, multiple sources, platforms sharing the same information, retarget. There's so much that has changed. And I would really, really, really love to get your insights about what's the most effective way for agencies to start thinking about generating revenue from paid advertising right now. And what do you think's coming up in the next in the next, let's stretch this out a really long time and say the next 6 months, because if you're planning your media campaigns a lot more than 6 months in advance, you might be overthinking it a little bit in my. So, all right. So we're going to start with Marina.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, of course. And social specifically, I think, as you say, has gone cuckoo with especially like Facebook and Instagram and other more B2C focused platforms where the targeting is just so broad. Like it's so hard to narrow down your audience and go niche and really try to attract the people who you actually want. So you're fully relying on the algorithms of Facebook, etc., to really help you figure out who that audience is, which I think is very hard oftentimes. And unfortunately, lots of businesses are just like letting it run with just like geography and maybe some basic demographics. I believe in using custom audiences where you're really narrowing down your target based on intent, being in purchase behavior or location visits or contextual targeting, and really some other intent or behavior patterns that can be added on top of pure demographics, because that's really what can justify and making sure you have better ROAS from your campaigns. So that's just a little bit about that.
All right. So to follow on with this, Chris, I know that you've got an opinion about sort of, broad targeting, letting the platform do it versus leveraging data. So I think this is probably a good spot for you to jump in.
Sure. And I think, it used to be that these ad tech platforms were really black boxes and there was lack of transparency. And I think with the potential third-party cookies going away and a number of other factors, there's been a real significant emphasis on first-party data and activating first-party data. All of these social platforms will allow you to upload a list of people you want to target. And by that, we mean upload a list of emails, addresses, and phone numbers, right? Facebook will accept up to 3 emails, an address, and a phone number. Google accept up to 7 emails, an address, and phone number. And so there is, in our view, a real emphasis being put on first-party data and activating that data that you have as an advertiser. And the best part about this is that you then know exactly who you're messaging to. You're not relying on a black box and their filters or their assessment. You're actually getting a specific audience of people you really, really want to target. And again, that's part of that is being driven by third-party cookies going away. But the more you know exactly who you're targeting and you can filter by your own demographic data, your own characteristics that you have within your enterprise, you then have full transparency. You're marketing to actual people versus bot traffic. There's a substantial, some people say between 30 to 65% of the internet traffic is generated by computer programs. And so first-party data enrichment, first-party data validation, cleansing it, making it optimal, and then uploading it into these platforms is really paying some pretty substantial dividends. And then just moving, when you talk about B2B advertisers, there's a whole new trend occurring here where the ability to link these consumer contact points to a business list will unlock digital advertising in ways that was never possible before. So normally you can only reach 10% of those folks on Facebook and Google, i.e. a list of business targets. But if you can do the consumer linkage, you can take it up to 90 to 100%. And it's a evolutionary change when it comes to B2B marketing. So lots happening around data enablement, data activation that is going to be very beneficial here in the coming months.
Okay. And John, I suspect you're going to come at this from a completely different angle. So have at it.
Well, look, I mean, the different perspective here is my focus is entirely within the ecosystem of Facebook Ads Manager, Meta Ads Manager. So it's funny because I've been part of all this huge transition from the way things used to be, and I was all about the micro targeting and trying to outthink the algorithm and all this, spending a lot of time in there changing things. But the more and more the way this is going the last few years, and something I've had to start to accept and test and be okay with, is like the machine learning part of this with the algorithm. Not only is it getting smarter and better, but there's so much, the role of automation is really big. And it's become a greater part of this for the advertiser now and in the future than it was before. So, for example, with our targeting, yes, you can go broad, and something that I was completely resistant to not long ago, but I've seen decent results with completely going broad. But if you're not completely going broad, half the time you're going much broader than you think you are, because you enter detailed targeting or lookalike audiences and whatnot, and the audience expansion tools automatically turn on, which gives Meta the ability to go broader. So it has been quite a shift during the past 2 to 3 years that certainly has been painful for a lot of us in terms of what we're willing to do and kind of question our long held assumptions about the way things work and our roles within advertising. But I think it also means, as we look towards the future, AI, automation, I mean, this is the direction we're going.
Yeah. So let me ask a follow-on question, because there's sort of since the audience here is quite broad, we've got big agencies and small agencies. Is there sort of a big budget strategy versus a small budget strategy here?
Is it for me?
Well, actually, I was going to ask Chris.
Go ahead.
So, do you think at smaller budgets, however you define small, let's say it's like under $10,000 a month in media spend, do you get the same bang for your buck that you get, if you're spending $100,000 a month out of data tools?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it really kind of depends on where you are in the funnel, right? Very top of the funnel, brand building, broad spend. You can spend a lot of dollars very broadly.
Yeah.
The further down you go in the funnel, the more targeted you want to be, and real specific, right? And getting more specific, you can target a smaller volume of people, which means you may have a much lower required media budget, because you're not going to spend to reach 50 million people. It's just like you spend on a Super Bowl ad, you spend a ton of money because it reaches a lot of people. Same in digital. So if you've got a lesser of a budget, you're going to want to use some data tools to really pinpoint the exact people you want to target, which means you may want to target a much smaller audience. You spend a little bit more money to identify that audience, but your media budget actually is considerably less. So you're putting a little bit of money in the data technologies to really pinpoint, but you're not doing this broad spend. So depending on whether you have a big budget or a smaller budget, there's different avenues here, right? Broad budget, big budget, broad appeal, maybe less targeting. Real specific pinpoint targeting where you invest a little bit more in, say, some of the data technologies, but it can require a much smaller budget. So there's a full spectrum depending on what your objectives are and what your budget is.
And obviously, most agencies, there's not a lot of agencies in the world that are doing top of funnel advertising simply because that's hard and expensive. Most everybody is sort of mid to low funnel for the most part. Is the trade-off of the limits of audience or sort of targeting audience, is that worth the trade-off of higher CPMs and CPCs?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, it has to be strictly ROI driven. I mean, we really look very closely at what is the effect of the targeting and monitoring the engagement level, monitoring the engagement in terms of, are you gathering the leads? Are you moving the needle? And I think, from our perspective, it absolutely is. I mean, data is what's been driving the success of Facebook to begin with, because of all the data they're able to associate based on the insight they have of all their users. So as you start bringing that data into your own environment as a first-party advertiser, or as using your own first-party data, you can accomplish the same thing. And whether you've got 10 or 15 or 20 attributes of demographics, or 500 attributes where you can get really, really specific, the more you pinpoint your ideal customer profile, and whether you're using it based on insight or whether you're analyzing your best customers using AI technologies to say, okay, what are the ML, or what are the models, and what are the combination of characteristics that yield your best customers? The old way is 10 different attributes where you're using a persona. But with AI, you can use literally hundreds of attributes and
Mhm.
combinations of those to unlock the ideal customer. And you will see improvements in your ROI when you do those types of things, for sure.
Marina, what's your thought about the trade-off of target versus higher media CPMs and CPCs?
Yeah, well, I don't think they're always going hand in hand, to your
No?
point. So
Okay.
sometimes the CPMs and CPCs won't be as affected, even if you have a custom audience. Kind of depends. But for example, with our programmatic advertising platform, you literally just say, okay, this is the CPM I'm comfortable with, so I don't want to spend more than this. So you put your CPM bid, let's say $8, and you still target the custom audience on whatever channel you have selected, let's say native. Your ads will still go live. It's just depending on how much of that custom audience you'll be able to reach, right? So it's also about the auction, for example, in the programmatic world,
about scale, right? Your ability to scale.
Yeah, so it depends, of course, how much of that you'll be able to reach. But yeah, you can leave it for as high CPM as possible, which is usually what will happen on like Facebook and LinkedIn if you don't specify. But on programmatic ads, you can actually control in most cases your budgets and CPMs and data bids.
The other thing is if you bring the data in house and you do your own targeting, you're not necessarily, you can now deploy this audience in a broader sense. And so if you're competing against in a bidding scenario, like let's say you've got your goal is I want to target high net worth people, high net worth women over 45
why
that own a house.
Why don't we keep it
everybody bidding for that audience? What's that?
I was going to say,
if you're just targeting a certain audience, go ahead.
Yeah. Why don't we think about this specifically from a B2B standpoint, right? Because,
from a B, yeah.
So, right. So what we're talking about is, how can agents in one part, we're actually talking about how agencies can leverage advertising.
In a B2B, yeah, Tim, in a B2B world, it's even more powerful, because if you're saying, okay, let's move it to, I want to target IT decision makers and I want to target VPs and higher. If you can identify and construct your own audience that you're going to activate, that might be a very high CPM audience. But if you're putting it into Google or Facebook, you're in the consumer world, you're marketing against people who may have a much lower CPM. But where you've constructed and you know that those people in your list are the ones you want to target, you're able to take what would normally be a very, very high CPM audience, because you've constructed it yourself and are activating it and deploying it in a broader channel, even though within that broader channel, you're targeting people with your very specific characteristics. And that's what allows you to then take and construct what would normally be a high CPM audience and activate it more broadly and get that benefit of a lower CPM.
Yeah.
Now, I love B2B. Can I give an example of my favorite B2B audience? Yeah, so we have this amazing strategy for targeting past event attendees using data. So just like location data of a physical event attendees. So for example, let's say South by Southwest, Consensus, whatever, Digital Summit Atlanta that happened recently. So just being able to kind of geofence that, go back and identify people that were present during that conference, that's really powerful. That goes really well on our platform. And I'm sure other platforms like advertisers use it on social all the time. Of course, the CPMs are a little bit different, but overall, like you can deploy those audiences really well. So just wanted to know
John,
that.
You and I had a conversation a while ago about, this idea of first party data. So if you're an agency who is trying to leverage paid advertising to increase its own lead flow, you maybe don't actually have a ton of first party data because you haven't had 10,000 VPs of marketing show up on your website for you to collect that first party data. And, so how does that impact things if you don't actually have the audience to address?
Right. So that's where also how you optimize goes hand in hand with the audience size you have to work with as well. So for example, if you want to get sales, and you tell Meta that you're optimization goal, performance goal of sales, but you've got an audience of 5,000, 10,000 people, it's not going to be able to properly optimize to do that. And you're not going to be able to exit the learning phase, and probably going to have really high CPMs, and you're probably not going to get great results. Now, to be clear, high CPMs doesn't necessarily mean bad results, because it depends on what's the payoff of that conversion that you ultimately get. But the rule of thumb is you want to get 50 events per week per ad set. That's going to be pretty tough for the small audience. So it's really those with the bigger budget, the bigger audience, that can better optimize. So I look at it this way when it comes to these small audience that are, because I break it in half for my own personal advertising. Like I still do the micro targeting, love it for the people who are deep into my funnel. And I know those are small audiences. I'm not optimizing for an action to reach them. I'm using reach optimization to go after them, to promote a very specific thing that I know that they're already deeply engaged in. And then on the flip side, anything that's cold, whether it's top of the funnel or just people who aren't exposed to me yet, that's when I'm going broad and let the algorithm do its work. Because at least in my testing, when it comes to people who are cold for me, that's where I'm seeing better success is trusting in the algorithm a little bit.
Okay. All right. So let's move away from targeting a little bit, and let's move into, are there platforms or formats that you guys are seeing that are really helping agencies get in front of the right target audience? So assuming that they've leveraged their targeting as best as they possibly can through the use of tools or algorithm as they see fit, what are the formats, platforms? Is TikTok the new Facebook? Does LinkedIn make Google search look terrible? What are you guys seeing in a B2B perspective?
Well, I'll jump in from a B2B perspective. Yeah. You mentioned LinkedIn. It's very interesting. So LinkedIn, even though it's a B2B networking site, 75% of those profiles are mapped to a person's personal email address, not their business email. So back to your own, activation of your first party data. If you've got a list of these 100,000 IT decision makers and you upload those into LinkedIn, they're only going to find a very small percentage of those. But if you can associate those 100,000 business contacts, business emails with consumer linkage, very similar to Facebook and Google, you'll be able to reach 100% because you're linking that consumer identifier to the business. Yep. What we see in LinkedIn is less engagement than in some of the other platforms. Because if you think about LinkedIn, you're not in there all the time. You go in, you go out. You're looking for a couple business associates, but you really aren't surfing in there. They don't have the same type of content. They're getting better at putting in more content. Yep. But we see more engagement in Facebook and Google when you activate a business audience. Again, you have to activate that business audience by associating the consumer identity linkage. But we've seen as much as 10x increase in a Google ad once you get that consumer linkage going and happening, because people are more used to clicking on ads, I think, maybe in some of those environments more so than LinkedIn. That's what we see.
Yep. Okay. Marina.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on who you're trying to target, even in B2B world. So what we've seen is that if you're targeting SMBs, Facebook is most probably your go-to in terms of activating even towards that business audience. I haven't seen much success in TikTok. I may be missing on stuff, so I would love to hear what John has to say about that. But other things like Quora sometimes also works depending on, again, your target audience. Sure. There are some niche like developer specific ones, because we have a few clients that are targeting technical people, like businesses, CTOs and stuff like that. So there's certain other channels you may be looking at that. Programmatic may work for you. You don't need to really test it. Sometimes that will work, sometimes that wouldn't. I would only deploy LinkedIn when you're targeting like bigger enterprise accounts and when you have a bigger budget, because usually the costs on LinkedIn campaigns are much higher than Facebook or any other channel. And you need to have enough data per campaign to make that algorithm learn and optimize your campaigns to actually reach those results. So unless you're willing to spend thousands of dollars for just like a test campaign, I would not put your nose into LinkedIn ads for like a few $100. because that may not result in anything.
All right.
So that's just.
I want to be mindful of time, so let's get to John on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Marina on TikTok, I mean, it's an interesting animal, man. I mean, if you've advertised on Facebook, it's a lot like running Facebook ads. It's just a much more simplified version of it. And a lot of talk here has already been kind of on that control, losing that control with Facebook ads. I think it's even more the case with TikTok, just because it's so scaled down in terms of the targeting that you can do. I think some of the issues with it are the same as some of the issues we see with Facebook ads sometimes, because it is so top level that you might not get high quality engagement, clicks, whatever it is that you're looking for. But I'd say that the big format that is kind of a signifier of where meta advertising is going right now, it's not so much B2B, I guess, depending on your business, is the Advantage Plus shopping, which is fully programmatic and relying on machine learning and understanding who your current customers are and finding new customers who are like them. And we're probably going to see that type of model applied to other types of advertising on Facebook and maybe elsewhere as well. Okay,
perfect segue. Now, I do want to say we've got about 2 minutes for the three of you to answer this question in total. So be fast. So if you were an agency who is looking to create better advertising, better lead gen, how would you be leveraging AI in terms of advertising? So obviously, audience, consumer matching, got it, Chris. We're right there with you. But how would you think about leveraging AI?
For us, AI, it's, AI is doing a lot of amazing things, but you got to think of what is AI. AI is advanced modeling on top of data. The most important thing when you're using AI is to make sure you're putting good data into these models or into these systems, because bad data in results in bad AI out. And so that's really the most important thing from our perspective. And then from there, you're going to see some pretty amazing things with some of the things that are coming out when it comes to AI.
Okay, so Chris wants AI to be fed really good data. Marina.
Agree with Chris. Of course, use AI for really identifying and narrowing down your ICP, but then also identify the best that omni-channel strategy, workflows, and customer decision journey that actually works best. AI is all about math, right? And all those algorithms that will help you optimize your path. But of course, don't forget about content, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. Also consider what's actually those path of customer journeys and conversions and ICPs that are actually working for you.
Okay, John, AI.
Yeah, right now we're seeing it within Meta ads for recommendations for copy and even transforming your imagery into different types of images and videos and whatnot. So I think we're definitely heading in that direction. It's going to be AI focused. The question right now is how much to use it as inspiration. In a lot of cases, it's not going to be perfect. You may need to correct it at the moment.
Okay. All right. So we've got literally 2 minutes left. So 25 seconds to tell us what's going to happen next and tell everybody where they can get in touch with you. Marina, go.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just type my name, Marina Burushkina, or go to our website, growthchannel.com, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Chris.
Yes, it's CMATTY, CMATTY at Versium. And what I would say, we're entering into some recessionary periods, and don't be afraid of that. The people are being smart, using data most effectively. CPMs go down in those environments. I think there'll be the people who invest wisely and smartly will get benefits during these recessionary times. And contact us anytime at Versium. We'd love to talk about how we can help.
John Loomer.
AI, machine learning, automation, that's where advertising is going. That's where a lot of marketing is going. Embrace it. Don't fight it. I talk about this stuff in videos every single day. You can follow me on TikTok, on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, at John Loomer. You can also message me at johnloomer.com.
Okay. One quick follow-up question for you, John. Do you do TikTok dances?
You know what? Actually, in my profile video, there's a little bit of breakdancing happening there. But beyond that, that's the only time. That's mainly because I was making fun of the whole thing, and I think it's ridiculous.
Okay.
But that's a limit to it.
All right. My name is Tim Kilroy. You can find me at timkilroy.com. And I help agencies create more revenue, more profit, and more happy by working with leadership, senior management, and delivery folks. And oh, guess what? Our time is up. And you can find me at timkilroy.com. Thank you.